Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I hope you're having a really great day. Today, at long last in my possession, I have not one, but two life-size replicas of the Mandalorian helmet worn by Din Djarin in the hit TV show The Mandalorian. Which one do I prefer? Let's find out. Okay everyone, here we go. Two different versions of the Mandalorian helmet by two different companies. To my left, we have the Mandalorian helmet by Anovos, designed and built to be a wearable prop replica for cosplayers, mainly cosplayers in mind. That's really what Anovos is known for, the manufacturing and distribution of costumes, Star Wars related, Star Trek related, what have you. And that's specifically what this is designed for. To my right, a similar Mandalorian helmet designed and developed by eFX Collectibles to be a prop replica for display. Those two purposes kind of intertwine. Each one of those kind of crosses over into the other's territory, but which one is right for you? Which one is right for me? Because I really don't have a need for two of these. So that's kind of why I bought both of them. I wanted to compare and contrast the two and decide which one that I wanted to have. Now, starting off, the first main difference between these two is how each company went about recreating the helmet used on screen in The Mandalorian. We'll start with Anovos. Anovos got their hands on the original props from the film, the original helmets, and they used their 3D scanning technology to do complete scans of those helmets. They advertise that scanning ability is accurate to within 0.2 millimeters, and that's pretty darn good. To my right, though, the eFX helmet was created using the original molds, meant that they used to create castings for the original helmets used in the show itself. So, what you're dealing with is two completely different methods of achieving authenticity. Which one was better? Again, is a judgment call. That being said, what I'm noticing here right away with the Mandalorian helmet by Anovos is it's a little bit bigger. When you're scanning something into 3D and manipulating it in a computer, then you have that leeway. You can make minute adjustments to it and make it fit whatever your purpose is. You'll see that the Black Series, the Hasbro Black Series helmets, they've done that with some of theirs in order to include electronics, for instance. But, okay, so one of the side effects of doing this, I think, is that you tend to lose, I think, just a little bit of the edges. Now, if you look really close here, then maybe you can see the difference in sharpness along the top of the visor. See how that's just a little bit softer on the one side than it is on the other. There are a couple of other reasons for that to occur, but I think that it's at least as likely that that was part of the digital scanning process. Additionally, there's a difference in materials between these two helmets. When you pick them up, for instance, you can tell there's just a bit more weight to the Anovos helmet than there is to the eFX helmet. Not only that, but when you give the helmets a good squeeze, the Anovos helmet is ever so slightly more pliable. That tells me that they used a somewhat softer plastic in the production of this helmet. Why would they do that? I'll tell you. Given that this is meant to be a wearable helmet, when you grab it and pull it over your head, let's just say you have a larger than average head size. As you go to push that over your head, you're going to find that the more forgivable nature of that softer plastic is a bit desirable. It's much more comfortable going onto your head and coming off your head. And really, you don't want to be uncomfortable when you're going to be wearing this thing for a very long time. So the flexibility is desirable in a cosplay-based replica helmet. The side effects, unfortunate side effect, again, is that you lose a little bit of that sharpness. Now, I should point out right now that the degree of sharpness that was lost is so minute that the only way that I was able to tell it was when I watched the show and just made a really, really painstaking comparison between the helmet that I was seeing on screen and the helmet that I was seeing on the table in front of me. If you're not looking for it, you probably won't miss it. Now, with that in mind, eFX's decision to use a much more solid type of plastic with theirs speaks for their desire to create what is going to be the most accurate possible rendition of the Mandalorian helmet for display on a shelf or in a collection. And I think they've really achieved that here. Now, that being said, even this version seems to have lost a little bit of the sharpness when compared painstakingly with the helmets on screen. Let me tell you why I think that happened. Let's say that you're a company that wants to create a prop replica of a helmet worn in a hit TV show. and you were lucky enough to get your hands on the original molds that the filmmakers used to create that prop. What you're going to do then is you're going to create a casting or multiple castings from that mold or molds. Once that's done, you take those castings home and then you make more molds from those. One of the side effects of making molds from castings made from an original master mold is that you lose a little bit of the detail. And with every generation of mold created from a previous casting, you lose a little bit more of that detail. So what we can bank on is that eFX Collectibles did not get to take those molds home from Lucasfilm. They had to make their own castings and then their own molds. And once those molds were made, they made castings from those molds. And that's how we got the helmet that we see today. There may have been even more castings made and more molds made from those castings, multiple generations leading down the line. I don't know. I'm not privy to those details. I couldn't really say for sure. At the end of the day, even taking into account the fractional loss of detail in each one of these helmets, you're not going to be able to tell unless, again, you have the screen, you have a photograph of it up right there on your screen, blown up very large, and you compare the two. Now, let's get into talking about the paint. And there are noticeable differences between these two helmets when it comes to that. Does that mean that one or the other is less accurate? No, and here's why. If you go in and you watch The Mandalorian, just pull up any episode of The Mandalorian, watch it, and pay close attention to the details on that helmet. And then put up another episode of The Mandalorian directly after that, and pay close attention to the details on the helmet in that episode. I'm willing to bet you that you will find discrepancies between each one of those helmets used in that episode. That's because they didn't have a single helmet that was used for every shot throughout every episode of that 8-episode season. No, they had multiple helmets. How many? Who knows? They might know, but they're not telling. And I'm not asking. Before this discussion starts, I just want to start by saying that there is no clear pattern. There's no clear template for what makes the ideal painted replica of a Mandalorian helmet. There are so many different variations within the show itself that anybody who steps forward and says, that's wrong, is probably wrong, at least in some level. Especially when we're talking about the degree of painstaking detail that went into each one of these helmets. I can comfortably say that each helmet represents a different stage of the Mandalorian's presence in that show. So let's move on to Anovos. When we're looking at the Anovos helmet, right away what you'll notice, especially in comparison with the eFX helmet, is that it has a very high efficiency surface. That's to say that it's very, very glossy, almost to the point of being automotive paint-like in appearance. What detracts from that is the weathering going on in these little crevices here. You'll notice that they chose to go with sort of a rusty color to it, and that's fine. I think I can recall seeing some shots in The Mandalorian in which the weathering took on that particular sheen. A lot of factors might have contributed to that. There might have been a specific color of gel that was used in the light that was hitting him. There might have been some kind of quality going on with the shadow. They may have actually just painted it like that in order to get it to meet the demands of a certain color palette that they were trying to achieve. The reasons are numerous for that decision to be made. So that's what you're looking at when you're looking at the Mandalorian helmet from Anovos. Again, high efficiency, very glossy surface. Now let's move over to the eFX helmet. Considerably less efficient surface. That's not to say that it's not shiny, that's not to say that it's dull. In point of fact, it's quite shiny. I'm looking at it right now, waving my fingers, and I can see my face in it, I can see my hands moving in it, I can see the pattern on my shirt, I can see the TIE fighter. It's all there. So it just reads as less automotive, more metallic. I don't know. Again, I've seen episodes where the helmet looked like this. I've seen episodes where it had a less efficient surface, much like this one. And I don't think that there's any way that one person can say that definitively one is more accurate than the other. It just depends on which episode you're watching and which scene from that episode even. Now, looking at the weathering and comparing it with the weathering on the Anovos helmet, eFX went with a look that more resembles corrosion than anything else. I'm reminded of some metallic parts on a motorcycle that I had when I lived on the Pacific coast and rode quite a bit up those highways. The weathering, the corrosion that occurred on some of the metallic bolts of that motorcycle closely resembled what we're seeing here. So this reads as pretty accurate to me. Again, episode to episode, even scene to scene in some episodes, you just have to make the judgment as to which one is going to more represent your needs. So those are the key differences on the paint. Also, if I rotate these around, show you this little vent part back here. Not nearly as corroded on the Anovos version as it is on the eFX version. That's an interesting decision, and I haven't spent a lot of time looking at the back of the Mandalorian helmet, so I really couldn't say which one is more accurate, if any. I'm quite comfortable with either one, to be honest with you. Now, those are the main differences here. Wearability, comfort, that's something that somebody might ask for, right? When you upend this and look inside, you'll notice that each one of these helmets actually comes fully lined. Nice and comfortable, good soft fabric. The key difference being the Anovos, being the one that's meant to be worn, also has added pads that you can choose to put in or not, depending on your needs. For myself, when I initially put this helmet on, the construction of it combined with the shape of my head was forcing the faceplate all the way back up against my mouth. The end result was that the back of it was sticking out quite a bit, whereas this was making it look like I had no chin. So I took those pads, put them in the front, and that pushed the front of the helmet away from my face, and Bob's your uncle, I've got a normal looking Mandalorian helmet that fell on me much as it did on Din Djarin. Again, as we talked about, more pliable, very easy to put on your head. This is comfortable, totally wearable. This one, also wearable. Upend it, similar fabric on the inside. I think it's less cushioned, less soft. So maybe not quite so comfortable in the long term. This is the only helmet that I've worn for any duration at all. And by that I mean I took it shopping at Trader Joe's. It's true. Now, the one key difference between these two helmets is that this is what you get. It legitimately comes in a very small box, totally wrapped up in a very nice soft cloth bag and surrounded by packing peanuts. This helmet came in a completely different type of box, much larger, more decorative, even had this cool like artwork going on the styrofoam bits, yeah. But in addition to that, it also came with a quality acrylic display stand, a certificate of authenticity, and a nice brushed aluminum nameplate with the edition number on it. Whatever number out of 750. I'm going to show you how to put together that stand right now. All right, everybody, you can see here that this is absolutely everything that came in the box with my eFX Collectibles Mandalorian Helmet prop replica. Now, you can see that the most obvious accessory that is included here is this stand, and it's a gorgeous acrylic. Mandalorian logo here obviously is laser etched or what have you onto the base of the stand. I'm going to show you how to assemble that in a minute here, but before I do that, I wanted to highlight a little bit of what this is. This is something that eFX collectors will be familiar with. It's an envelope like this accompanies every collectible from them, and this one contains Mandalorian Helmet Limited Edition. It has pretty sweet photos within it of Din Djarin and the helmet that he wears, as well as a brief description of how the helmet was made. It's very similar. I remember reading all this on the website, so I think most of what we're getting here you're going to see on the website. They may have tweaked it a little bit. They might have tweaked the copy a little bit for the packaging. I don't know. I haven't really done a comparison. There's your COA over there. Really nice looking thing. Also included in this is a bunch of legalese and warranty information, but we won't talk about that. Mandalorian Helmet serial number 209 of 750. That's pretty... It's a number. Well, we'll give it that. I've never been one to be interested in having like number 1 or number 7 or number 007 of 750, what have you. But this will attach to this little guy back here and be affixed permanently to the stand in time. So we're going to leave that out because I'm going to use that here in a minute. I'm going to put this away and get it out of the way, and next I'm just going to go ahead and do a quick assembly of the helmet stand itself. Now, okay, let's go ahead and get this. First you're going to mount this little piece onto there. Ah, that's really gorgeous. It doesn't even have the helmet on yet. Now this piece comes with 4 screws. 3 of them are identical and slightly longer than the 4th. There may have been instructions that came with this. I don't know. I'm not one for reading directions. I just kind of figure it out. It's a friend of mine at Sideshow Collectibles who taught me that. Every time he would assemble a table or anything, he would just reach into the box and immediately throw away the instructions. That's one screw down, another screw in. And what Ben would then say is, if you use the instructions, then you don't understand how it works. I guess the philosophy being that if you have to figure it out on your own, rather than being told how to do it, then that knowledge ingrains itself within you. Interesting guy, that Ben. I like him a lot. All right, step one is complete. We have our stand. Now this is going to go here. So this goes on there like that. And a single screw. This one, I'm thinking, the short one, will go here. And eventually there's an adhesive tape that is off camera right now that I can apply. Also, should point out that these are also included. They're little tiny rubber feet that you can stick on the bottom so that you don't have to worry about scratching up your acrylic stand. Finally, this nice velvety covered bit right here will go over the top of the stand. And the final screw will slide in right there. And screw that down there. All right, cool. And here it is. The eFX Mandalorian helmet on display and on its stand. Fully assembled, looking beautiful. Now, a few things I should probably point out when we're talking about acrylic display stands. They pick up everything. And by that I mean if you touch it, that fingerprint's there to stay for the foreseeable future. There are certain products that you can buy that will enable you to clean the acrylic and clean it without, I don't want to say without making any scratches, but minimizing the scratches. So with an acrylic display stand, you need to take great care. Furthermore, another thing that acrylic attracts is dust. There's a certain amount of static electricity inherent in that material. So if there's dust in your room, you can bet that it's going to just funnel its way towards that like, I don't know, like Matthew McConaughey into a black hole. That's not Star Wars. So once you factor in the stand into the equation, then the decision becomes perhaps easier for those of you who are looking for a collectible prop to display. This one, you could probably do something similar. In the past, I've gone out and just bought brushed aluminum paper towel holder and used that as a display for other helmets. You could very easily do that with this and it would look quite good. Apart from that, your only other option would be just sit on a table and hope that the bottom doesn't get scratched up as you move it around. This, however, very attractive means of display. The Mandalorian logo, I don't think that's laser etched. I think that that's actually printed on there somehow. Not quite sure how. You'll also notice that I didn't put the nameplate on it. You can affix the nameplate to it and it probably will look even more attractive. I didn't do so because I'm still not entirely sure that I'm keeping this one. So if I move it on to another collector, I want to give them the option to either have it displayed that way or not. And I think that's everything I have to point out about the Mandalorian helmet from eFX and from Anovos. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments below. I'll do my best to get to them as quickly as possible. I hope you enjoyed this comparison video. I'll try to do more as opportunity presents itself. And until next time, be good to your plastic. Hey, look at you. Made it to the end and everything. If you liked what you saw, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. If you're really hardcore, ring that notification bell on my homepage and you'll be sure to be notified every time a new video is posted. Until next time, thanks again for watching and don't forget to be good to your plastic.